His father was the President of the U.S. I was taken hostage and substituted by the man you knew as John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. when I was about 10 years old. That was done by our government. John F. Kennedy Jr. died in a plane crash that shocked the whole country 25 years ago. The review found no last message, no distress call, and nothing else. But records from the past that were just recently found tell a different story. There was an exchange. The message from his plane came after the official timetable said he was dead. The sound quality is bad and is full of junk. His voice can be heard, though. He's not talking to the people who run the airport. He's talking to someone else who knew he was going to come down before anyone reported him missing. John F. Kennedy Jr. was born in Washington, D.C., on November 25, 1960. His father had just been elected president 17 days before. It weighed 6 pounds and 3 ounces. And had to be carefully watched at first, but he got better quickly. This child was born 8 weeks before JFK moved into the White House. He was the first kid ever born to a president-elect. People all over the country fell in love with this little boy who had just made history. The newspapers called him America's baby. When John Jr. and his family moved into the White House in early 1961, they were the youngest people to live there since 1893. His attention was always on him from the start. John Jr. had made the Oval Office his home by the time he was 2 years old. He crawled through the Resolute desk's secret hole while his father worked, as shown in a picture from October 1962. It became a sign of the Kennedy family and what people started to call Camelot. But things weren't always happy behind the scenes. Jackie Kennedy had been very sad for a long time. After giving birth. Wasn't talked about back then. Jackie didn't like having her children used for publicity, so JFK often let cameras in when she wasn't there. They told reporters to stop taking pictures of the kids through the fence in early 1961. Caroline and John Jr. kept playing in that desk, though, making up their own little world. Then there was November 25, 1963. John Jr.'s 3rd birthday. That day was also the funeral for his dad. He stood next to his mother outside of St. Matthew's Cathedral and gave the coffin a small salute as it went by. People all over the world were heartbroken for only 2 seconds. A shooter with a big Hasselblad camera caught the moment from 150 feet away. 175 million people in the US saw that one picture. And a huge number of people around the world. Was the first funeral that was shown all over the world. In a quiet voice, Jackie told John what to do. He gave her his prayer book and then put up his little hand. After that, his nurse and Secret Service agents took him back to the White House. Reporters who had been following him since birth cried out loud. A small private school was set up right inside the White House so that John Jr. and Caroline could live a normal life. Up to 20 kids went to this school on the 3rd floor from 1961 to 1963. Everyone in the family paid for the 2 teachers. The kids were told off for yelling, "Boom, boom," while seeing presidents walk the red carpet. During the 21-gun salute, everyone would yell, "Your daddy's home," when JFK's chopper touched down. The Sun Deck's pool was even used at night by Jackie and Caroline. This setup made sure that John and Caroline's schooling was safest. Anyone could picture it. Jackie thought it was worth the money to keep the press away. John Jr. had a name that stuck with him his whole life, John. But that's not what his family ever called him. A reporter once heard the president quickly say, "John," and thought that was the boy's name. The news outlets picked it up and ran with it. John didn't like it, Jackie's helper later said. What he did didn't work to get rid of it, though. Newspapers still used the name after he died. You can see how strong the media can be by looking at that stupid mistake. One small mistake could become a permanent part of someone's life. After JFK was killed on November 22, 1963, she was afraid for the safety of her children. She moved her family to a 15-room flat on 1045th Avenue in New York in May 1964. It was right across the street from Central Park. John went to St. David's School, which cost $2,400 a year, and then to collegiate. People were watching John, but he would still sneak into the park by himself, making police look for him. He loved to play jokes on people and was crazy about crazy foam and funny string. She would get them for him at nearby toy stores. Teachers saw that he had trouble sitting still when he was 7 years old. That tense feeling never really went away. In June 1968, more bad things happened. Robert F. Kennedy, John's uncle, was killed while running for president. John stood with his mother and sister at the funeral in St. Patrick's Cathedral when he was only 8 years old. There were more than 2,000 people there. John changed after that. He ran away to closets and didn't want to talk. Because Jackie was scared, she took the kids to Aristotle Onassis Island of Scorpios. Later, psychologists said that seeing two close family members killed before age 9 had a big impact on the person. It could be one reason why John kept looking for dangerous things to do later in life. In 1971, there was one of the most shocking events. John found his mom's birth control pills when he was 11 years old. And chose to take them. Hidden them in his bag. When Jackie couldn't find them, she got very upset. She thought the staff had taken them, but she quickly found them in John's school bag. It wasn't just a joke. Family doctors thought John was trying to stop Jackie from getting together with other people. At the time, she was seeing a number of strong guys. Only her sister Lee and the family doctor knew about the whole thing. Then, in the summer of 1972, something else very scary happened. John was swimming in the Aegean Sea near Onassis boat when he got caught in a strong current about 200 yards from shore. A lot of time passed while he was under. At the Olympic level, Christina Onassis could swim, so she jumped in and saved him. John had taken in a lot of water, and he coughed for hours. Jackie was so scared that she told him he could never swim by himself again. Onassis made the whole island safer by adding new rules. After that, though, John seemed even more interested in risk. It seemed like he needed the rush. In 1975, John was 15 years old and began to act out. He stole a $12 compass at Phillips Academy in Andover and was caught. He was held by police for 3 hours. Nicole hired the best lawyer F. Lee Bailey and paid $15,000 to make sure there were no charges and no proof. In a different situation. He took a pack of gum that cost $3, and the shop got $2,000 for it. Jackie had a secret $50,000 fund that she used to deal with these problems in private. He also drank and tried weed, but Jackie made sure the news never got out. John finished from Phillips Academy in 1979, even though it was hard. Jackie was there, happy and proud. A lot of people liked him and his friends. He was known for his beauty, not for getting into big trouble in school. Sometimes get into trouble. Afterward, he went to Brown University to study history. That was in 1983, and Jackie was there to see it. He wasn't kicked out. No one copied his work. As a popular but still searching college student, he just went about his life as any other. He did an internship at the Center for Democratic Policy in Washington, D.C., over the summer of 1981. It was his first real job in politics. The group's main goal was to help the Democratic Party get back on its feet after losing the 1980 election. I looked into political trends and began to understand how policy was made behind the scenes. It wasn't fun or exciting, but it was important. He got a taste of what he might do in the future, and it was either politics or something close to it. John spent 3 months in India after college. He went to college at Delhi University and studied real problems like health, education, and food. Didn't live in style. A lot of the time he slept in cheap rooms and on the floors of embassies. His goal wasn't just to see the world, but also to understand it. He negotiated with tuk-tuk drivers and didn't use his official rights. Indira Gandhi was still in charge in 1983. He changed after the trip. He kept in touch with people he met there for years, even after he started George magazine. John got a job at the New York City Office of Business Development when he got back in 1984. It was his first real job. He was trying to become someone other than his family name. He wasn't sure if he wanted to run for office. He learned a lot about public service from this job. He wasn't just riding high on his status. He was making his own way. At this point, he became more interested in writing and making a difference in the world. Everything he did and saw that took him from India to work in the city was leading him in a new direction. Everyone was shocked when John F. Kennedy Jr. began his job as a lawyer. After graduating from NYU Law School in 1989, he took the New York bar test with 7,000 other people. About 70% of them passed. He didn't. Because he wasn't just any law student, that failure made the news. The press called him mean names like, the hunk that flunks, and hoped it was just bad luck. In February 1990, he tried again. He failed again. It hurt even more that second time they failed. Caroline, his sister, had passed the first time she tried. Robert, his cousin, had failed once and then passed. There was a lot of pressure because everyone was looking. He told the media, "If all goes well, I'll be back in July." The rules at the Manhattan DA's office say that he would be fired if he failed a third time. But he finally passed in July 1990. He felt better. But his faith was already low because of what had happened. The first year he worked at the DA's office, in 1989, he made only $30,000. The news sources were shocked by that for a Kennedy. People said he was slacking off, but he did his job well. He was one of 68 new judges who started on August 21. He did not ask to be treated differently. He mostly dealt with small fraud cases and disagreements between landlords and tenants. He was different in court, though. 6 cases were in his care. And won all of them. His first win was on August 29, 1991, when he caught a thief who had passed out in the flat he was breaking into. They called him the burglar who sleeps. That case was the first time JFK Jr. never lost a hearing. But something worse came next. He was given a case in 1991 regarding someone connected to the Kennedy family. There was talk of insider trade. He was no longer just a lawyer all of a sudden. As a Kennedy, he might have to go after a family friend. People in the office talked behind his back. Could he stay fair? Would he do the right thing or protect his family name? It was a test of character. He worked on the case and tried to keep things business, but the stress never went away. A mob investigation he joined in 1992 brought him even more into the world of crime. He wasn't working at a desk. He played a role. He took part in an attack on a club. Connected to the mafia. Faked being someone else, talked to witnesses himself, and was in real danger. A Kennedy had never done that kind of work before. Even though his family had been hit by guns and been in scandals, JFK Jr. had never dealt with the kind of crime he was now. His bosses began to believe in him more. The job was making him different. He was no longer just a name. He was becoming respected. The news never left him alone, though, from the very first day. On August 28, 1989, when he walked into court, there were already reporters and cameras there. Every time he argued a case, someone took a picture of him. The press wrote about his clothes, his hair, and even his smile. That is, not the crimes or the victims. They thought his pay was funny. People said he could have been wealthy but decided to be poor. Some people thought he was just there to get attention. Some people said he was getting special care. A stage was made out of the building. People there felt it. The defendants. I could feel it. Even other attorneys had to change their plans to stay away from the cameras. For him, what was a normal day for other people turned into a big deal. Still, he stayed for 4 years, from August 1989 to July 1993. He won every case. He made it over the bar, but he was tired. There was always attention on them, and it no longer felt like fairness. He went into the media after leaving the DA's office in 1993. He started George magazine in 1995. In September, the first issue came out at Federal Hall in New York. This is the same building where George Washington took the oath of office. He put up $20 million of his own money and made Hatchet a partner. But the first cover made a storm. Cindy Crawford posed as George Washington while her abs were bare and her hair was powdered. People were shocked. The critics laughed. They said it was a magazine for people who don't care about politics. The first issue, on the other hand, had 175 pages of ads. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, meet George at the launch." The magazine did something risky in 1996. They put out an issue about sex problems in politics. Behind closed doors, JFK Jr. wrote a personal piece that hints at his father's problems. Often, he said, officials look for a perfect life that they don't have to live. His family was very angry. Jackie Kennedy had worked for years to keep the Kennedy family's good name. It hurt her son to bring up old hurts in public. Even though sales went up, his ties with his family got worse. They felt lied to. Things got worse in 1997. JFK Jr. stood for a picture for his own magazine while half naked. The goal was to get more attention. Advertisers and brands didn't want to be connected to that kind of picture. Their own staff revolted. They said he did something wrong. Some editors said they would quit. He was also putting down his cousins and calling them poster boys for bad behavior at the same time. There were holes in the magazine. It was no longer a risky test. It looked hopeless. Things went wrong again in 1998. Someone who writes at George, Stephen Glass, was found making up stories. He made up sources and quotes. Even whole businesses. Forbes looked into one story and found that the company in question didn't exist. Vernon Jordan, one of Bill Clinton's advisors, had to personally tell JFK Jr. that he was sorry for the fake quotes. It was a huge blow. Ethics in journalism were already being criticized, and now George was adding to the problem. The money was gone by 1999. $10 million were lost by the magazine. A week before he died, he went to Toronto to meet with investors from Canada. Hachette wanted to leave. It was even said that someone on staff had taken money. 20% less ads were shown. His boss said that JFK Jr. often turned down important talks that would have saved the magazine. Not them, but people like John Gotti Jr. and Princess Diana. He only talked about unknown politicians. After he died, Hachette was in charge. They lost money over and over. They stopped publishing the magazine in 2001. He thought about running for governor of New York in 1997, before everything went wrong. A secret study found that 65% of Democrats liked him. Many Democrats in the state liked him, but some still thought he wasn't ready. They said he didn't have any skills. It broke his heart. He asked his friends, "Will people really believe me?" He gave up on the idea after just a few weeks. In 1998, he was in Cuba for a CNN interview with Fidel Castro. It was said that the government kept an eye on him. Some people said that the conversation gave away too much information, but it was never clear what exactly. It was clear that JFK Jr. had a way to get to Castro that very few Americans ever did. Some people thought it was brave. Some people said it was careless. He even thought about running against Hillary Clinton for Senate in early 1999. People who work in politics said Clinton's team was scared. He was well liked enough to win. He was told by a union boss that if he ran, people would tell Clinton to back off. But then some notes got out. A lot of people said that his campaign would be based on favoritism. That word hurt. It said the same thing that had been said before: he was popular but not qualified. He gave up the idea right then. At the same time, he was ready to act. For the first time, he played himself on Murphy Brown in 1995. He was really charming, everyone said. In 1998 and 1999, he tried out again, but Hollywood directors didn't want him. They said that his name would make any part look bad. That person would only be seen by JFK Jr. He also hadn't been trained in acting. He was famous, but he still couldn't get in. He was writing a book by the middle of 1999. Politicians would have been caught in scandals, and he was the only one who could write it because of his ties. It was $750,000 from the distributor, but George Magazine was not working. Michael Berman, his partner, had left. It was hard for him to be married to Carolyn Bessette. Their friends said they fought a lot. The magazine wasn't making any money. His personal life was falling apart. He also had to write a book. Things were getting worse. They met on a trip to St. Martin in the early 1980s, but they really became close at Lee Radziwill's wedding years later. In the year 1988. That's when John F. Kennedy Jr. and Daryl Hannah started dating, and it lasted more than 5 years. It wasn't calm. It was loud, a mess, and always in the papers. Mary Kennedy, John's mom, really didn't like Daryl. An author who wrote about John said that in order to be loved by John, you had to first be liked by Jackie. I was sick of all the attention by 1993. What did she say to Entertainment Weekly? Even her plumber asked her about John. They broke up and got back together a lot. Back in 1994, when they broke up for good, John was already seeing Carolyn Bessette. He didn't give up on Daryl right away, but it was too late. Things were not going well in John and Carolyn's new relationship. A fight was seen between them in Washington Square Park on February 25, 1996. The press caught it on video. John got hit by Carolyn. The guy tried to take the ring off her finger. A close friend said Carolyn was very angry about a wedding they both went to. The bride used John's fame to try to get the news to cover the wedding. It seemed like John should have left, but he didn't. She stormed off after the fight, and John sat on the pavement with their dog. The video shocked people. The whole country. Even the co-founder of his magazine was mad that John didn't tell him because he thought it would hurt sales. Things got worse by 1998. Friends said that Carolyn was caught using drugs from their coffee table. John joined her and told her friend not to worry because he was a Kennedy and had been through this before. That year, Carolyn got back in touch with a guy friend. They kissed, but she pulled away because she felt bad about it. After 2 days, John went to the man's door and hit him. He told him to stay away from his wife. They began marriage counseling in April of that year. John told them he didn't want to be one of those Kennedy men who didn't care about how their wives felt, but they were barely hanging on. John was under more stress in 1997. His family was in trouble. In George magazine, he wrote that his cousins Joseph and Michael Kennedy were bad models of how people should behave. Joseph's marriage ended in a fight. And Michael was said to be having an affair with a maid who was 19 years old. I had to say sorry in front of a lot of people. After 16 years of marriage, Michael and his wife split up. As John's family fell apart, he tried to keep his own life together. His magazine was also having a hard time. By 1999, his marriage was already in danger. Friends said they thought of it as a marriage on hold. They were still seeing a counselor. Carolyn decided to go to Rory Kennedy's wedding only after John told her she would never have to go back to the Kennedy family home. Jest, pressure from the media, and drugs all broke them. Friends said that the best parts of their relationship felt like magic, and the worst parts were awful. They thought they had time to fix things, though. They took a plane to Rory's wedding on July 16, 1999. They never got there. John wished he could fly the plane. His teacher had offered to go with him because it was a dangerous trip. It was bad outside, and the path was hard to follow. John said no, though. He wished to do it by himself. He had only 310 hours of flying time. 55 of them were at night. He only had 3 hours to fly that plane by himself. And only 48 minutes of those were at night. He bought the $300,000 plane. In April 1999. He wouldn't let anyone else fly because he still had a cast on his ankle from a flying accident. At 9:41 p.m. that night, the plane started its deadly descent. It's known as a graveyard circle by experts. He was off and didn't even know it. Instruments were not used to teach him how to fly. He couldn't see the distance because the sky was foggy. The plane went sharply to the right, sank, and hit the water. Around 200 Melif, no call for help was made. Didn't know he was going to die. People who were there said they heard blasts that night. Some people think the crash wasn't an accident. Some say there were bombs that went off because of the height. Some people think that Navy SEALs were waiting in the water. Some people even think John lied about dying. He was a danger, they say, because he planned to run against Hillary Clinton for Senate. The stories won't go away, but there's no proof. Some say that one of the seats wasn't in the rubble. That was never said in official accounts. But the secret still makes people feel bad. Navy divers found the wreckage 116 feet below the Atlantic on July 21, 1999. There were still straps on all three bodies. Inside the plane, John's body was found. Along the way, Carolyn and her sister Lauren were there. At 2 a.m., sonar found the plane. The bodies were found at 4:30 p.m. Autopsies showed that they died right away. John hurt his legs so badly that the kneecap was found inside the dashboard. A diver said he found a piece of skin with blonde hair on some gear, but that wasn't proven. Their ashes were spread out at sea by a Navy ship. When the plane crashed, officials checked to see how it was. It had been checked out and passed on June 18, 1999. It had flown 622.8 hours at that point. The plane had 663.5 hours left when it was found. In the past month, he flew for about 40 hours. It was broken to destroy the digital voice recorder. The battery wasn't there. It didn't have the autopilot feature turned on. The GPS was still on. It was important, but John didn't know how to use the tools that were there. There was as much as $100 million in his will when he died. It was fought over for years. Her children, Rose, Tatiana, and Jack Kennedy, got everything. 2001 was the worst year. As a deal for Carolyn's death, the Kennedy family had to pay her family $15 million. The Bessettes asked for $20 million. The Kennedys put in a $7 million offer first. They finally agreed after 18 months of tough talks. Carolyn's mother almost left unless she got a written apology. She would have taken personal things like the John Scrimshaw set with her. Were quietly given out. A small amount of the wealth was given to charity, but the family kept most of it. On November 7, 2021, hundreds of people who believed in QAnon got together in Dallas. It was one of the weirdest events connected to his name. They thought that JFK Jr. would come back to life and help remove Trump from office. Some people said he faked his own death and had been working all these years without anyone knowing. Some people thought that JFK Sr. was still alive. Some people told the news that JFK Jr. would be Trump's vice president. These ideas caused families to split up. One man spent months following the movement and going to meetings to wait for someone who never showed up. 8 years after the crash, in 2007, radio tapes from the FAA were made public. Thanks to New Jersey controllers, they found out that John's last touch was a simple one. Nothing after that. A 21-year-old worker at Martha's Vineyard Airport called the FAA at 10:05 p.m. because they were scared. He said, "Kennedy Jr. is on board. They need to find him." The dispatcher wouldn't give any information. It was the intern who gave up. "It's not a big deal," he said. That holdup cost them. The search didn't begin until after 2:02 a.m. It was too late.